all you Greta's and Chutescats out there. Welcome to APES Notes, Unit 5, Section 7, Meat Production Methods. So, here we go. It takes 20 times more land to produce the same amount of calories from meat as it does from plants. So, a lot of land is needed to produce the beef, pork, chicken, and even eggs compared to fruit, potatoes, and vegetables. Here is global surface area allocation for food production. So this is all the total area on Earth. This is the amount we can live in. Out of the habitable land, this is what's allowed for put aside for agriculture. Most of this is the livestock. Very few of it is actual crops. And so then if you look at from plant-based food versus the meat and the dairy, what we're actually using the land on our planet for. It takes, put me over here, it takes 10 times more water to produce, excuse me, the same amount of calories from beef as from eggs and plants. A lot more water because you're not only watering the plants to feed these things, you're watering the animals, and then you're having to clean up after them as well, which takes water. So we have what are called CAFOs, which are concentrated animal feeding operations. And this is, we just talked about industrialized farming. This is the animal version of that. We take the factory processes and we just apply it to living creatures, which is kind of messed up. So these are very high density animal farming or feedlots. So when the majority of the chickens that you guys eat are coming from a situation like this. Beef cattle, dairy cows, hogs, and poultry are all raised in this way. They squish way too many of them into a small area. They're confined or allowed little room for movement for all or part of their life cycle. So this is how they spend their lives. So there's your ham and your bacon squished in there. They rarely get outside, or if they are, they're really smushed together and they're up to their knees in their own poop. So antibiotics and nutrient supplements will minimize the rampant diseases and malnutrition, but that means some of the animals are giving antibiotics they don't need, which results in antibiotic resistance. Benefits of CAFOs, they're increasing and increasing. So they minimize land costs because you're putting a lot of animals in a small amount of space. They improve feeding efficiency because there's less area for them. And they increase the fraction of food energy that goes into production of an animal's body mass. So between 82 and 2012, you can see the increase in these large livestock farms or CAFOs. The drawbacks, a lot. One, antibiotic resistance, which we've talked about in the past. So all of the animals who didn't need antibiotics that are getting them are helping to create antibiotic resistant bacteria. Bad. Number two, we get funky diseases like mad cow. Bovine spongiform encephalopathy is the big fancy word, and it literally means spongy brain cow disease. So you get these holes in your brain, and it came from eating cow brains, which is really messed up. So what they would do is when animals would die, they would just chop up the animal and feed it to all the rest of the animals that were still alive. So then if one cow had mad cow disease, then a whole bunch of cows had mad cow disease. This was early 90s. And then places, not necessarily as many here in the United States, but other places where they ate brains, or if somehow brain matter got mixed into the meat, people were getting mad cow disease, which is messed up. So here's a normal, healthy prion, and then here is the diseased prion that causes your brain to look like Swiss cheese. Waste disposal. All these animals poop. We got to put it somewhere. The average CAFO produces the amount of poop a town of 5,000 humans would produce, but it doesn't go into the sewer system. It goes into pools like this, or waterways, or groundwater, and it just contaminates a lot of stuff. So CAFOs were designed to pollute. They have it set up in a way that all of these different things, and I'm not going to run through all of these, but you can see they pretty much make it so the waste is going to go somewhere it shouldn't, because, oh look, they have like dead animal piles. Oh, that's so gross. And then you have fly infestations. This right here is the size of a tractor trailer. The white box, sorry, this little tiny white box is the size of a tractor trailer. So this is a large, large area where they collect the runoff, and you've got these catch basins, but this is going to have like raw sewage in it. That's really gross. We also have ethical concerns. Maybe you care at all about how these animals are being treated. So when cows are living this close to each other, chickens, pigs, if you care about that, if you care about the livelihood of the animal before they die, that is another valid reason to have concerns with CAFOs. Also, this is really cool, and there's a lot of science behind this, the nutritional content of food. So if you feed animals different things and you take care of them, healthier animals are scientifically actually more nutritious for you. So if you feed cows grain, which are not meant to eat grain, corn, soy, and other byproducts, you get some fat quickly. So sometimes they have candy that they can buy cheaply because the whole point is to get them fat quickly. So I really feel like you shouldn't be feeding cows like candy. That's bad. They're confined. They often stand in mud and poop. They're often kept indoors. Many chickens go their entire lives without seeing the light of day ever. Chickens tend to be less aggressive in the dark, so they just keep them in the dark all the time. Movement is discouraged. The more exercise you get, the tougher your muscles get. So the less movement, the softer the meat is. They're often given hormones and antibiotics, and a lot more fat with a lot less nutrients versus a grass-fed. So this is what you could get at, say, a local farmer's market. And it is more expensive, but you get what you pay for. They eat from the pasture, so they consume their natural diet, grass, bugs, and other stuff depending on the animal. They live outside in the sunshine. They don't have to have hormones or antibiotics, and they actually have superior nutrition. Grass-fed and pasture-raised products are higher in a variety of nutrients, including but not limited to beta-carotene, vitamin E, vitamin D, B vitamins, calcium, magnesium, and potassium. Some meats like beef have CLA, and then all that have been tested have higher omega-3 fatty acids, which is going to help you with brain function. So you literally can be smarter by making the smarter choice. If you must eat meat, go for the grass-fed stuff. Then we have what's called free-range grazing. So these are your rangelands. Dry open grasslands used for the grazing of cattle. And this is the most common use of land in the United States, mainly the central United States. Here you go. So these are the rangelands areas. You can see residential areas, populated, and then remote areas that are all considered rangelands. So a good chunk of the middle of the western half of the United States, it was rangelands back in 2007. Benefits of grazing. So ungulates, your hoofed animals, can be raised on land that is too dry to farm. You couldn't actually grow crops there, but you can grow the grass that these guys eat. It uses a lot less fossil fuel energy than feedlots. You also don't have to plant anything. It just grows there. And as long as you're rotating them from area to area, they're not going to overgraze anything. Environmental issues, they're more vulnerable to fire because it is a drier area, so you can wipe out a lot of it quickly. If you eat too much of the grass, it can cause a lot of stream bank erosion. If they stand in the water, you can have pollution of the surface waters, and you can have overgrazing. But like I said, if you're rotating through an area, you can have them in this area for a while, and then this area for a while, and then this area, and then this area, and it gives the other areas a chance to grow back. But it is an issue if people don't do that. So it leaves land exposed to wind erosion, and then the soil can't absorb and retain water as well, and biodiversity decreases. So here's before grazing, and here's after grazing, because you're going to keep some things they'll just eat all of, but you're definitely affecting the biodiversity of the area when you have grazing in an area. But who determines the soil condition? So poor soil is considered when you have no nutrients or ability to hold moisture. So environmental organizers say up to 55% of U.S. rangeland soils are in poor condition due to overgrazing. But this is the Bureau of Land Management, not Black Lives Matter. The Bureau of Land Management says our scientists disagree, but then they won't give us an answer. The Taylor Grazing Act in 1934 converted federal rangelands from a commons into a permit-based grazing system. So thinking back once again to tragedy at the commons. So the low cost of these permits continued to encourage overgrazing, and they actually spent 7 times more money on management than it actually received. So more or less they were subsidizing grazing. So it didn't work the way they meant it to. Bureau of Land Management regulations, they'll often have requirements to focus on health of the watersheds, habitat restoration, and ecological protections of areas of these rangelands. But there's no requirement to involve environmental scientists, which might be like a good call. And the state and regional managers are actually given wide latitude for guidelines and standards. So definitely can be improved. Why should we reduce meat consumption? To save the planet. One, where we would be reducing both CO2, methane, and nitric oxide emissions. We would conserve water. We would reduce the use of antibiotics and growth hormones that are being put into the animals and put into you when you eat them. And we would be improving topsoil and addressing the ethical concerns about animal treatment, because if you're not eating them, they're not being mistreated. So for one little hamburger, it takes 7, that's it, one hamburger, it takes almost 7 pounds of grains and forage, over 50 gallons of water, 75-ish square feet of land for one burger. And it uses over 1,000 BTUs for feed production and transport. So you can power a microwave for 18 minutes or make one hamburger. This is ridiculous. I think it takes 17 acres of land to feed your average omnivore for a year. It takes 17 acres. It takes a quarter of an acre to feed a vegan. So we can use a lot less land. On your own time, if you want, watch this video. It is not school appropriate, but it is kind of entertaining. So, that is the end of the notes. You have survived yet again. Before we go, I want to let each and every one of you know that you are good enough, you are smart enough, and people do like you. And there's the bell. And in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good God, do your homework.